We had one other thing we wanted to show you because, as you know, one of the troubles that many of our troops face is when they come home, they can't find a job. 744,000 vets are unemployed today. Corporal Andrew Steiner, a Marine wounded in Iraq, was one of them until this week. With the help of the Wounded Warrior Project and a veteran named Paul Gennaro, Andrew began his new job as the Assistant Superintendent at the Vehicle Security Center at One World Trade this past Monday. I got a chance to sit down with both Andrew and Paul, who had never met in person until our interview. Take a look. Paul, you took a personal approach to trying to help a veteran. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit of the background of how you got to that point.
So I work for AECOM. We're one of the world's largest engineering design firms. We have about 45,000 employees, and we have a strong commitment to corporate social responsibility. Through that, we asked the folks from the Wounded Warrior Project to come in and meet with us. Since then, I've been working with Andrew and 3 other folks.
Andrew, tell me about your decision in 2001 to join the military.
I entered the Marine Corps on September 17th of 2001, and I was the first training cycle after 9/11.
And you were deployed twice, 2 tours. Where were they?
I went to Iraq twice. I was there for the invasion in March of 2003, and I came home, and I went back in June of 2004. When I left the Marine Corps in 2005, I went into real estate finance. We were seeing a lot of default, and I was one of the lowest guys on the rung, and they gave me my walking papers. So.
But you continue to try to find work. What were you doing in between?
Anything and everything.
Paul, you also have a military background.
Yes, I completed 7 years of naval service in 1994. And one of the challenges I experienced when I got out was taking the skills, the leadership traits, the things that I learned in the military, and translating them over into terms that would be relevant to civilian hiring managers. So having gone through that myself, I thought that might be an area where I could assist.
What did you have to do to help get him ready for the interview that he ended up having?
I think with Andrew, he's got the skill sets and he's got a lot of great energy and he's a smart guy. So really with him, it was a matter of saying, all right, what do you want to do?
You just landed a great new job. What does it mean to you, Andrew, to be going back to full-time employment, but having it be at One World Trade?
It is very special because of the importance of the project.
How do you think that your experience in the military is going to help you be successful at your new job?
When you transition to a construction industry, you have the same things. A large-scale project like the World Trade Center is really a natural fit. It's inherently dangerous, and it's just really keeping everybody focused on what needs to be done in a safe manner. That really is a parallel to the Marine Corps.
Your thoughts on not just having a moral obligation to help our veterans, why is it important in other ways?
We as a nation have invested a great deal in training our men and women in the military. We've made this large investment in defense. For us to fully get the return on that investment, when they come back from the military, let's put them to work.
What would you tell any veterans that are watching today, if they have been hesitant at all to reach out? Is it just a matter of making a phone call?
It is. Go online, be proactive, just like you are in the military. Just because you're out, you may have lost your sense of purpose, but the resources are there. They're available to you. There's always someone to call. It's really letting those people know that, the people in Paul's position, that they're capable of helping these veterans.
If people realize that with just one phone call, they could decide to help 3 or 4 additional people.
If we can help just a little bit, their skills will take over and good things will happen.
Personally for you, Andrew, what else is on the horizon?
I plan on staying here in New York, and hopefully, this is very
maybe meet a lady?
Yes.
This is a dating
site. It could be a dating site, the Fives dating matchmaking service. Remarkably, 3 of the 4 vets that Paul's taken under his wing just since April 13th are now employed. I love this story, Andrew, because AECOM's a wonderful company that I've worked with in the past. But I think at the individual gumption of somebody like Paul Gennaro, who is a dad, he's got a busy job, but he said, maybe some one-on-one tutoring would make a difference. And he also said that being a vet himself, he could understand what it was like to look at the resume of Andrew Steiner and say, well, this is way too, it's like in military speak. Let's just switch this around. And he's already helped 3 people land a job in 2 months.
And he's smart. Why wouldn't you hire someone that has that kind of commitment, dedication, doesn't complain, that kind of discipline, you know is going to be on time? And really, it's the best way to say thank you. I mean, you think about what they do for us every single day. So to come home, if you can hire just one veteran, you make a difference in their lives. And I actually think, you know, we do bash government a little bit, but I do think the military is obviously a different animal. I mean, these guys and gals are incredible. And I think they can work with private and public partnerships for the government to help inform business owners of who's available, who they can hire, who's coming back for more, and who needs work.
One of the things that Andrew said, Greg, is that it was kind of... he would go to the job fairs that they had. There are a lot of companies and a lot of different programs that work together. There, as Andrew said, it was really, he just needed to make a phone call. But he said that if you went to a job fair, he was there with 1,000 other vets, and they're all going for the same job, and there was no individualized attention. But that was what really made the difference, was it actually talking to one person and having them open a door.
Yeah, I mean, job fairs, I remember going to them, are incredibly depressing. It's sad because you do feel like just a nobody with a sheet of paper that nobody reads. I feel there should be affirmative action for vets. If there's anybody that deserves to get a cut in line, given the amount of work that they've done for the country, it's them. The other thing, too, is when you think about military service, isn't that the real college? When you think about the contemporary campus and what's being taught on campus to play video games and get high, it seems to me military experience is really where you get life experience. And it is the new college campus. It's like the opposite of the campus. It's where you really learn something. And the discipline that you get from military service translates much more easily to work than the stuff you learn on campus where you major in musical theater.
Well, that's an interesting point, Eric. I wonder if you could talk about this, because Andrew actually signed up to go to the Marines when he was a senior in high school in that January of that year. 9/11 had not happened. He actually started boot camp September 17th, so right afterwards, and everybody in his group was from the New York, New Jersey area, so they had this camaraderie. But look at the experience that he got, and when he came home and he got that job and then he was laid off, he didn't wait around. He worked in construction off Broadway. He was worked in a meatpacking plant. I mean, these guys really do want to work.
There's no reason not to hire a vet. They're committed. They're hardworking. We know that. They're task-oriented, and they're problem solvers, just by nature of what they've been through. Side story, when I was trading down on Wall Street, literally 2,000 people would stand on the floor, individuals. We all worked for ourselves. We risked our own money. We made, we lost. Sometimes you'd have to bring people in. The best traders, the best workers, the best employees, the best clerks were always the guys with the ex-military, either sports or military backgrounds, because they're focused. They know how to work hard, and when they're confronted with a problem, they figure a way around the problem. They figure out how to solve the problem, not trying to figure out how to, run out the back door and blame it on somebody else.
And Bob, the numbers of vets that are unemployed, I mentioned 744,000. That number can be very overwhelming, and you could think, oh my gosh, well, I'll just send some money to one of the programs and see if they could help. But you do a lot of one-on-one mentoring for people for lots of different things, one of them being helping people in their addiction. What do you think about that personal connection? If everybody out there watching wanted to help a vet, if they knew that they could help, I mean, you've done that type of thing before.
Well, I think it really matters. I mean, but I think more importantly, let me, besides my own experience doing this, but what this one guy said here I thought was very, very important. And you mentioned it, that we pay all this money to train these people. They get the top-of-the-line training. They learn a lot of skills, and not the least of which are leadership skills. It seems to me, what better people to go and hire? I mean, I just think that if we've made that investment, we might as well get it coming out of the back end.
What I loved was Wounded Warrior Project, when Paul said to them, because AECOM had a Wounded Warrior Project come in and give a presentation. It was at the end of it that Paul said, well, maybe I could help some people. And they said, well, how many could you help? And he said, how about 3? And they said, we'll give you 4. And now 3 out of the 4 are employed.
Well, we didn't hire a military veteran for president.
That's a good point.
But you don't have to be in the military.
And look what happened.
See how that's working out.
Yeah.
What about references, though? Dana,
I'm
when I
glad
look
you
at
got
all
that in on 4th of July, Greg.
Every job I've
No,
ever
it just
had,
occurred to me.
I got through someone knowing somebody or making the opportunity available and networking. If everyone could just refer a veteran or keep your eye out for veterans coming home, and if they need a job and refer them to other people, the connecting, I think, is probably something that maybe isn't as good as it could
And
be.
you don't necessarily have, because you've been serving overseas and you've had 2 tours, you haven't done the sort of networking that other people in more of an urban setting might have done.
By the way, that wasn't a jab at President Obama. That was credit to John McCain, who was a war hero.
I understand that.
I didn't mean it as...
No, I understand that. And the one last thing I will say is it seems to me the government ought to do a little bit more on doing this. But, you know,
Andrew actually said that he thinks that the government does actually do a fairly good job of of having the programs. It's just sort of the getting the information to the vet and the vet being willing to make a call and ask for help.
right.
So if you need help, you know where to call. And also, if you can help, Wounded Warrior Project is a great place, and there are others.